Welcome to Expert Instruction, the Teach by Design podcast, where we dive deeper into the research surrounding student behavior by talking with the people who implement these practices where they work and with the students that they support. How you doing? How you holding up? It's a loaded question, to be sure. I don't always know how to answer it these days either. Well, wherever you are, I hope that you can use the next 40 minutes or so to relax and listen to our incredible guest and how she uses her life experiences to drive her work, guiding the students she calls youth leaders to realize the value of their own histories. Renee Mitchell is our guest today. She is a multi-hyphenate. She's an advocate. She's a poet. She's a teacher. She's a journalist. She's a researcher. She's a PhD candidate, a two-time Social Emotional Learning Innovation Award winner, and she's the visionary behind an incredible program called I Am M.O.R.E, which is a culturally specific, strength-based, evidence-grounded, transformative process to help Black youth move through the world as joyful, empowered change agents for themselves and others. Thanks for being with us, Renee.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here with us too. So let's just kind of start with like an easy little question. What brings you to this work? Can you tell us a little bit about your background with schools, how you got involved, all of that?
Okay, I can give you that background. My first response was going to be my trauma brought me to this work.
That can be your answer. Yeah, for sure.
It really was an unfolding. So okay. I spent 25 years as a newspaper journalist and had a really successful.
I got my degree in journalism.
Oh yeah, me too. And so I left the industry when it was just feeling like things were about to go downhill, like really quickly. So I took a buyout from the Oregonian newspaper. I was a columnist there, worked for the Oregonian for 10 years. And so me leaving was my attempt to kind of really find out who I was and explore some creative things. So I spent a couple of years doing that. And then I was recruited to come and teach at a high school in North Portland. So it's the most diverse high school. It's also low-income high school generally. Everybody had free lunch, for example. Mm-hmm. And so I was the only Black teacher, and I had never really taught. I mean, I was a teaching artist in schools during that period after I left the paper.
Okay, like an artist in residence sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
But I was not a teacher. I didn't go to teacher school, basically.
Okay.
So I had to figure it out as I went along because there wasn't a lot of instruction.
Yeah.
And being the only Black teacher, I felt real compelled to be of support to the students there. So I revived at their request, the Black History Month Assembly. I was an advisor for the Black Student Union. I started this Black Girl Magic Club, and I was just really engaged in student interaction and in supporting them in ways that they needed. So fast forward, so 3 years later, I helped students all the time work on their scholarship applications because writing, that was my thing, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I helped them kind of craft their stories when they're writing scholarships. Now, Stand for Children is a national organization that really advocates for education and excellence and that kind of thing. So they have this scholarship program called Beat the Odds. And so they give out scholarships all over the country. They're $16,000 a piece. So we had gotten, I think, one the year before. And so the year that I was starting all of these, doing all these things, there were 3 young ladies I helped write. I helped them with their application. And I didn't write it, but I just helped them with it.
Sure.
And there were 4 winners in Portland. There were 16 around the state, 4 winners within the city of Portland. Okay. Of the 4, 3 of them were my mentees.
Hey.
Yes. So I was really proud of that, and I was really proud of them. But I felt like this was something special. This was something that didn't happen a lot in Roosevelt, where we would, students at our school would get three, you know,
Yeah.
these types of scholarships. So I said, I asked them, I said, I feel like it's important that we put a flag in the ground and say
Yeah.
it happened. And so that's how we created I Am More, which is an acronym for making ourselves resilient every day. Now, we had
Uh-huh.
no idea where we were going. We
Mm-hmm.
just said, let's just figure it out. And so, but I had this sense that we were on the cusp of really creating something that would be transformational within these youth, that they would be able to then be able to share their stories and help other youth work through their own trauma. So that was the initial intention. So the first performance that we had, so we started in like late November 2018. By January 2019, we did our first performance, and I had done theater since I was in high school, and so
Mm-hmm.
theater, I was a shy, bullied kid, and theater was what really helped me come out of my shell. It was so much easier for me to become someone else than it was to be myself.
Yeah.
So, but I learned a lot of skills in
Mm-hmm.
theater. And so I used some of that training to help them, really weave their stories together so they didn't have to memorize anything, because these were their own personal stories. And they were nervous. They had not talked about their lives in public before, but we had to create the safe space. And then they performed. There were four of them at the microphone. And you could tell that they were nervous. Their voice was shaking. They were, you saw the tears coming down. But at the end of that, when the audience stood and gave them a standing ovation, and they were coming to them afterwards in tears and saying, "Thank you so much. You helped me understand my own life," or, "That was very brave of you. I admire you." All of these positive
Yeah.
affirmational kind of interactions. And it helped the students kind of understand that my story has meaning. And
Yes.
by sharing myself, I could support and help someone else. That really solidified it. And because there was such a tremendous outpouring of love, after that, they were like, "We want to do this again." At first it was like, "Oh, I'm so scared."
Yeah.
But now it's like, "I want to do this again."
Oh, the affirmation feels good too. Yeah.
And it's this like subtle thing of adults telling children, "Your voice
Yes.
matters. I
Oh,
hear
it's
you.
huge.
I want to learn more about you. You're teaching me things." Yeah, there's a transfer of kind of like there's something inside of you that gets birthed when other people acknowledge you and validate you, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
Absolutely.
so from there, a couple months later, had been invited to our first national conference. I took 6 kids to Philadelphia, New York City, and Washington D.C. They had never been to the East Coast. We were there performing, doing workshops, helping adults learn how to deal with their own trauma and what do youth need from adults in order to be able to, be their full selves. And these are all kids of color. So
Yeah.
this was the first time that they were ever put in that kind of position of agency, having agency and some authority, really. So it was an amazing trip, opened up their minds some more. And so, through all of this process, we were kind of we're honing our programming. And so we ended up with this 3-step process that we
Okay.
felt like, okay, this is what I Am More is all about. Because we were just trying to figure it out as we
Just
went along.
doing it as you go.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Can
checking
I ask you really quick too? So this all started from this experience that you had with these 3 students in applying and receiving this scholarship.
yes.
So what was your work like with them? What was it about the work that you did with them that you thought, I need to do this all the time with more students?
Yes. So what I was seeing in the process that they went through, I was basically telling them, don't just tell your story, you need to own your story. You need
Mm.
to understand not that this thing happened, but what did this thing teach you about yourself and your capacity and about your compassion and what your purpose is, how it can direct you towards your purpose. And so when I started seeing the kind of effect that had on
Just
my life,
just sharing and owning.
just
their
sharing it.
whole history.
Absolutely, because we're talking about young people who won the scholarship that had experienced sexual violence, homelessness, poverty, hunger, all bullying, all kinds of stuff, right? And so, how do you take this and make sense of it? And
Mm-hmm.
because they were able to go through this, it really transformed how they moved through the world. Their shoulders
Incredible.
were back, their voice was stronger, and we were creating opportunity for them to have platforms where they were sharing their story and also mentoring and facilitating workshops as young people.
And you were doing all of this as a teacher.
Teacher.
What was the subject that you were teaching?
Okay, so I would say that I was doing this as a teacher because I worked as a teacher. This
Yes.
was my own time. So when I was in the classroom,
Okay.
I was teaching journalism because that was
Okay.
what my background was in.
Mm-hmm.
But I spent so much other time in the school environment
Sure.
supporting youth on these other issues.
Got it.
So this wasn't really a class, except I used my classroom after school for Black Girl Magic, Black Student Union, and so kids were used to coming and being able to just like be themselves. Like they
Hang.
didn't have to explain anything. They didn't have to become something or refute something somebody had to say about them. They were just who they were and they felt community. It was so important to me to just create a sense of community within my classroom. I would bring food because, when you talk about the Maslow's,
Hierarchy of needs.
well, it's food and rest. And what I'm
Yes.
finding, because it was a low income school, a lot of kids didn't like the school lunch. They didn't taste good. And like immigrants were unaccustomed to how the food was tasting. So they were
Right.
not eating. And so I was seeing this happening. And so I was going to like Einstein Bagels and getting their day old bagels and buying cream
Mhm.
cheese and getting, bananas and oranges and just having that available. Just take it if you need it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was seeing a lot of kids who were not in my classroom, didn't know them, but they knew when they came in, they
She's
were
got
like,
the bagels.
bagel lady. She got to use all kind of things to get kids' attention, right?
It's so
Because
true.
distrust.
Mm-hmm.
So I started just doing what I do and loving, from the heart. I mean, I've always been a very compassionate a person that I do my art from my heart. I teach from my heart. I don't want to just give you a subject. I want you to know how that subject matter really connects with your life and why it's
Yeah.
relevant. And
Yeah.
journalism, it involves some writing, it involves some, storytelling. And so using those kinds of skills and incorporating some of that personal stuff into the story felt very natural to me. So
Did you see a shift in students like initially when you first started doing this? Were they a little bit like how like unsure of how this was all going to work out? And then about like when did you start to notice that they were like, "Oh, this is a different type of classroom that she's creating for us?"
well, as far as my classroom teaching, it was happening, you know, pretty quickly. I mean, I
Yeah.
put structures. So I would put structures in place. Like when you come into my class, when we start class, we always
Mm-hmm.
start it the same way. We're in a circle and we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about how was your weekend? How are you feeling? I had this block, and it had things. I feel tired. I feel hungry. I feel grateful. I feel, and so we pass that around the room. Identify how you're feeling. So that was how I first started. Like I wanted to know if you were checked out emotionally or mentally. I wanted to know it was because something that happened to you over the weekend or whatever. This was their opportunity to kind of give
Yeah.
that context. And
Mm-hmm.
it felt like students were knowing that I was seeing them, right? So they can
Yeah.
come. I was, if they wanted to sit underneath their desk, I wasn't fussing and fight. I didn't
Yeah.
force them into this box that we tend
Yeah.
to put them in. And the part of that was like, again, I didn't go to teacher school. I'm just doing things that are instinctive,
Mm-hmm.
intuitive, things that I wish someone had done with me because I was
Yeah.
a lead kid, I was a shy kid, I was a smart kid, but I was ignored. And because I was, the only Black kid in my classroom for most of my K through 12 experience, and it was very hard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because I was kind of told, you're not college material, don't worry about, I didn't get that kind of support, and here I am getting my doctorate degree. Yeah.
Ew.
So, but I
Mm-hmm.
always knew that I was smart, but I
Of
didn't
course.
hear it from adults. And so that was what the students were hearing. I was seeing things about them and acknowledging it. Oh, did you get a chance to play with your dog? And I
Uh-huh.
named the dog's name, and
Yes.
things that they would tell me, I'd ask about. How's your brother doing? You said he was sick, Lexi. Is he okay? Just being able to see them, let them be seen,
Right.
makes all the difference. And so it brings down those barriers, and that way
Uh-huh.
you can influence them a little quicker, because they start to develop trust that whatever you are doing is for their best interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the process moves along further. But as far as I Am M.O.R.E,
Yes.
I felt like they were changing. It didn't take even a month for me to notice the difference between what they were before and how they were now. So one person in particular, I can tell you, she's Hmong, right? And she always got teased about using her language. She always had, also in immigrant families, the older ones tend to have to take care of the siblings while the adults work, and there's a lot of stress and pressure. And so my interaction with her was, she was very closed off.
Yeah.
Within a few months of engaging with I Am M.O.R.E, she joined with a couple of other young ladies, uh, went to the principal and demanded that he put free menstrual cycle products in the girls' bathrooms and in the gender neutral bathrooms. So
Yes.
she went from hiding,
To
not
speaking up.
speaking, to not only speaking up, but speaking and advocating for other people.
Absolutely.
Because what I teach them is, we rise by lifting others, and we find our own sense of purpose by what we do for others. And so it's not this constant thing, but they see it led by example. And so these are the kind of things that they pick up, because every young person that comes through I Am M.O.R.E has different needs, different experiences,
Sure.
different stresses. But
Yeah.
so I don't say you got to do it this way. I say this is what is available to you at your banquet table. You take what you need and use it to nourish the things that need to be healed in your own life. And so, the thing is, I grew up people not seeing things in me that I knew was there. And
Sure.
so as an adult, as an influencer, I am looking for things that I could celebrate within that student, within that young person, and letting them know that I see it and allowing them to see it for themselves. And so once you set that foundation, it doesn't really take that long, because they're so unaccustomed to having that they gravitate for it, and they're wanting it more and more and more.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh. How many students do you have in the program at any given? Do you call it a program, an initiative, a
we're still
class,
trying to, yeah, we're still trying to find
a lifestyle, a brand? What are you? Yeah. Mhm.
So what I'd like to say is that we don't give students something to do. We give them someone to become. So we're not hoarding students. We're not counting students. We're not, they come in and out as they need to.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
do it. We just offer programming, and they can come and partake as much of the programming.
So it's available to everyone.
Well, we started out, when we started out, because of the kids who were really drawn to me, were kids of color.
For sure.
Right now, we had some white
I
kids,
get that.
but they were mostly kids of color. And then as we've done this programming, it transitioned into mostly Black kids, because they were bringing their friends. You know what I mean? So I wasn't going out and recruiting anyone. They were just saying, come here, come here, come here, because this is what you need.
You need to do this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have basically offered programming. So like this summer, we had a summer internship where we worked in collaboration, because I love collaborating. I don't feel like I want to do anything by myself. I love to collaborate with other individuals and programs. So we collaborated with the city and county in Portland to offer paid internships for young people. And basically, it was a cohort. We had 3 cohorts, and they would come and experience some of the programming. But this was also first and foremost,
Yep.
a safe space for them to deal with all of the things that were coming at them because of the pandemic. So the timing of it was
Ah.
we became this safe space and the programming became secondary. We did the
Mm-hmm.
programming, but we really just wanted kids to a place to come together and talk about what they were experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So now this was a summer internship and they felt so connected to their community. It extended until December.
Amazing.
Right.
Incredible.
So we also like we just finished a poetry contest. We do these conversations online to again give kids space to discuss. We just provide opportunities for kids to engage or not engage. But
Yeah.
we're saying we're offering this again. This is a banquet. We're offering this to you. Take what you want. That kind of thing. So now we're at a point where we have a 3-step process. The
Yeah.
inside
Let's talk
out.
about that. Mm-hmm.
So the first step is inside out, and this was the very root of I Am M.O.R.E. So we teach them how to be researchers of their lives. So we get them
I
to,
love that.
yeah. So I've learned so much since I'm in school and since I'm getting my dissertation. Like, how can I give kids some of these tools that I've learned that have been so helpful to me to kind
Yes.
of frame my own programming? So anyway, so inside out, we're giving them research skills to say, let's look at the data, right? And then let's look at how you analyze that data, right? So if you're looking at the trauma and we help you reframe it to say, this experience that you had that taught you compassion.
Mm.
This other experience that you had, if you had someone that was like in a refugee camp when you grew up and they died because they didn't get medical care, well, don't you think that might be informing why you want to go into the medical field? Because you want to
Mm-hmm.
save people, because you want to
Mm-hmm.
stop people from experiencing what this person experienced. It's getting them to connect the dots. And where else are they having that education that someone
Right.
walk them through? Okay, this is what led to this, and this is what shaped you to become who you are. So what you're doing is you're reframing this total negative thing. I'm such a victim. This happened to me, to this happened to me, and it taught me all this wisdom about this. It taught me about this. It taught me I could stand up on my own 2 feet. It taught me that I could, stretch a bag of noodles so far because there was nothing else. It taught me something that is going to help me in my life. And so giving them that kind of framework
Mm-hmm.
really allows them to put down some of their defenses, release some of their anger. So it's just inside out transformational process. So that's the very
Okay.
first thing that we do. And then we developed an outside up process, and this is what we did through the internship. So now we're going to have you take your lens that was now internal, and we're going to have you take it outside of yourself and look around you and say, well, what is it that I see, that I feel is unjust, and that I could change? That's how Rose came up with the let me put menstrual cycle things, because this is
Yes.
something that affects me, and I know it affects other young ladies. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we resolve that? So we're asking them to look outside of yourself, and what is it that you can commit to making a change that will affect other people's lives? And so
Incredible.
that's the outside up, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically youth participatory research. That has been around since the 70s in the United States, but we're actually putting it within a framework. So it's not just that; it's sandwiched within other things that make a difference. And
Are there skills then that you have to teach too about
yeah,
like how do you advocate effectively
well,
for something?
not
Yeah.
just that, but then research skills, like what is data? How do you collect it? How do you
Sure.
analyze it? How do you report it out? Absolutely. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the process of all this is, yes, so how do you then use your voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And different ways. And this brings us to the up and beyond. So this is the third step. The up and
Okay.
beyond is creating spaces where then that whatever you have learned, this wisdom that you've learned about yourself, about your community, about your family, that you're then sharing it with a wider audience. So whether that is through a song or a poem or a rap, and we also gave kids, not I shouldn't call them kids, young people, young youth leaders, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
tell their personal storytelling through fashion. So, which was pretty amazing. And
No kidding.
it was an idea of a young person that we work with who was really, really beautiful girl, but she was short, but she's always wanted to be a model. And she kept getting adults saying, you're too short, you're too this, you're too that, blah, blah, blah. But she always had it in her heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was her idea, let's do a fashion show, but let's do it differently. Let's use the different outfits to explain different aspects of our lives and how you could see our growth through the fashion. It was mind blowing. It
No
was
kidding.
amazing. So that's, I don't know if you, that's actually, the video is available on our website.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. So these kinds of platforms, we seek out ways for youth to tell their story, and we pay them because now they're the experts of their own lives. Now they're giving wisdom to other people. So it changes their sense of like, this is really important because now I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah, like there is something right about having like monetary value placed on the effort that you're putting out there.
Yes. And that's
It's
another
work.
growth thing too, because we had youth who were, I don't know what to ask. How, somebody has asked me to give a poem and I stay on them. If you did it for free, I'm going to get on your case about that. Somebody is taking advantage of you and you're letting them, right? So they went from, I don't think, maybe I'm not worthy to, yeah, this is my fee. And this is the other, I want a bottled water. I want, this, I want that.
That is, Renee, that is a life skill that so many of us are not taught.
Yes,
Yeah.
I wasn't taught it, and it took me a long time to come to that point. So now I'm all of these things that I've learned late in life. I'm trying to invest into them at an early age. So this is so when I talk about the unfolding, and of course with the research aspect of it, going back to these youth and saying, okay, what is it that really affected you the most? What is the secret sauce that if you took this away, that I Am M.O.R.E would not be I Am M.O.R.E? And getting all this feedback, not only from my dissertation, but how I'm shaping the program, we're coming up with a See Me, I Am Here. So SEE, in all caps, me, period, I am, period, because anything after I am really defines how you feel about yourself and how you're moving through the world, right? And then so that I am, period, and then hear, HEAR, like hear me.
Hear me.
Right. So putting all our program within that kind of structure, where not only within a cohort model, because we know that works and builds community and is so needed, especially in these times, but also bringing in people who could teach these life skills, such as like, how do you, because I've run into students who don't know how to write a check. They don't know how to address an envelope. Like, let's bring
that's real.
Teach them real life skills.
Yeah.
But also, how do you open up a checking account? How do you determine how to get your credit report? And how do you buy a car? How do you the need for insurance? And how do you know how to be able to change a tire? All that stuff.
You talk to them about taxes, because nobody ever told me how to do taxes.
Absolutely. We're also going to teach them how to create an LLC, because what we want to do with this programming, the 3-step programming, is have them create their brand. So if there's wisdom, like how to get rid of your labels, the weight of the labels that other people put on you, or how to really love yourself, or how to embrace your culture, whatever message that you have, how do you put that into something that reflects your brand, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a box of affirmations, things that are connected to who you are and your journey that other people can then buy or access. So you now have a brand. So you need to create an LLC that will save you some taxes, and you put that, so all of that stuff is now a part of, it's not just youth development. It's just like person development, like
for sure.
Yeah.
You're just creating adults. That's what you're doing. And you're teaching them all of these unspoken, not talked about, not taught
Yes.
skills that all of us are just kind of winging it, out here. And
Right.
so you've created what you're saying is that you're overtly, explicitly telling kids, students, youth leaders that they are going to need this. They're going to need these skills. They're going to need to know how to do this in order to be able to navigate the world. And you're being
Exactly.
really strategic. And, I think that's really great.
Oh, thank you. I'm loving the work. And the thing is, we would not have come to this point unless we took steps, some that didn't work, some that did work, and then check
Yeah.
in. And then how do we reframe things that make it even stronger? And so at the end of this, they'll have their LLC, they'll have their checking account, they'll have the skills, they'll also have a video that we're going to create that's sort of a mixture between TED Talk and
Mm-hmm.
masterclass. Like,
Sure.
so they will include their videos of their just everyday life, their old pictures, and in a very short, maybe 3 5 minute thing, this is their this is now theirs, right? This is
Yeah.
their brand. And so
I think the other part of it that I really like a lot is that the foundation of it is just about reframing their own identity
yes,
away from negative stereotypes or negative circumstances,
right,
and teaching them that in spite of or because of
right,
the things that they've experienced, the history that they bring with them, there's value in the lessons that they have, that they carry around with them. I think that's wonderful, and I think that that's something that everyone can do for students in schools. I think it's something that every student would come away with a new perspective, a way of celebrating themselves when there
yes.
are times when they can't, and also it would give teachers a way of connecting and building those relationships with their students that they otherwise maybe wouldn't during the day. Starting those conversations and asking students, tell me your story. Let's talk about what that means for you as a student. What do you bring to my classroom? I think that's
And
really powerful.
that also involves some training, because what I have
Oh,
found in doing
yeah.
the work,
Yeah.
some maybe
Yeah.
even some pre-training, because what I have found out in doing this work and in facilitating some of the workshops that have come out of I Am More is that we provide workshops for educators and for parents called Educator Heal Thyself, Parent Heal Thyself, because as adults, it's not a trauma-free zone. And the things that we have experienced in our childhood, if we haven't processed it, it's going to keep coming up and triggering us. And unless we develop some consciousness about why we're being triggered,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's with our children, with our students, with our colleagues, we will not heal ourselves. And if we cannot authentically take kids through this journey without having gone through it ourselves. So when I say the pre-training, that's what that we would take those who want to commit to this level of transformation in their students. They have to go through their own transformation, which is what I had to do for me to be
Mm-hmm.
very authentic and also to know what are the things that I went through, because there were a whole lot. I mean, sexual abuse, domestic violence, abandonment, my parent dying, all of this stuff I had not processed
Yeah.
until maybe 5 years ago or so. Fully really understood how has this shaped me, and everything that I went through has led me to I Am More. Like, I authentically understand what this process can do, because I had to go through it myself. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I'm gonna require from teachers, not to just take this programming and run with it as like an add-on thing, but it
Mm.
really has to come from a pedagogy of love.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to care about developing these students as human beings who will be our leaders. We talk about youth are the future, but it's just like a slogan. We don't really believe it. We don't really prepare them for that. And
Mm-hmm.
so we feel like this is what is going to prepare them no matter what their career might be, no matter whether they go to college or not. They are forever changed to make an impact in the world. And so that's what I'm, that's my life purpose at this point. and everything kind of unfolded, including, being able to come to the U of O and get my doctorate degree and
Yeah.
graduating in June. This is all connected, and
Yeah.
it helped me going through the process of the research and the getting my degree, of understanding the importance of research, and what do the scholars
Mm-hmm.
say, what is my North Star, and how is that connected to what the research says about what is needed, and all that. So we definitely have theories that we base this on the relational cultural theory, that we find ourselves in relationship with other people, which also goes to this African phrase, Ubuntu, I am because you are, because we are. Like, we find our humanity in the process of being around other humans.
Mm-hmm.
So having that, relational cultural theory, and then the critical youth empowerment theory is, we need community, we need parents, we need teachers, we need youth, and to empower and develop. And so when youth feel safe, then they engage. So they have to have certain things in order for empowerment to happen. And also the critical race theory. So when we're working with youth, we have to make sure that their culture is honored and centered, right? And so that also has to be a part of it, because what my research is found, the scholars are saying, in particular Black youth, that schools are a site of Black suffering,
Mm.
because there is this unconscious bias, because of all of this weight that's on them, that they come in with trauma, their trauma is added to them. And so you have to acknowledge how culture plays a part in who they're becoming. And so critical race theory is also part of our grounding, our theoretical grounding. And so then we toss in the social emotional learning, trauma informed practices, social justice frameworks, and also ancestral wisdom. Like, what have your ancestors gone through to be able to, tap into resiliency? Each of us can use that to go back and fetch some of the wisdom, some of the resiliency, some of our ability to overcome, and then use that to, kind of propel us forward. So all of those things, I can't imagine, doing this kind of programming without those kinds of theories, without those kinds of, added programming. And then the critical consciousness is raising their consciousness about what their role is in society, how they can
Yeah.
impact, empower other people. Because every student who comes through us, then we yeah, we say it's, required, because we rise by lifting others, but there's also this within their heart, they want to help empower other people. That's what our theory of change is all about, is that
Mm-hmm.
when we feel like we are grounded in our power, then we want to empower. But first, we have to get clear with ourselves about what our purpose is and what our potential is, and that we have agency. And then that gives us the confidence to go out and be able to empower others. And so we're finding that that's happening over and over and over again. Even if we don't say anything, that's what naturally comes out of this. This is why we developed that theory of change.
I'm really inspired by the way that you have taken your own experiences and that you're now using it as a way to empower younger folks, and you're giving them a gift that you received later in life so that they can have it now,
Yeah.
and they can do all of that good work now so that their futures are even brighter and more powerful. So I'm wondering what's next. So you just finished. Did you do your data collection on for your dissertation?
I'm in the process of doing that now.
Yeah,
It's a very uh, heavily qualitative approach, and so
sounds like it, right? You're using story.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. So we collected the data of, like, the stuff on our website, our brochures, our philosophies, and all of that, and then interviewing the young people about what their experiences have been. All their, we always encourage reflection and journal writing, so we're collecting all their journal entries, and then I'm also having youth help me analyze the data. So in everything I do, I'm always engaging youth,
bringing them along.
Exactly, because these are skills that they could build on. Who knows? Maybe they might want to go and get their doctorate degree one day, and this won't be foreign to them as far as this process.
Absolutely.
So,
Right.
and this is also how I first got interested in research. I was as a domestic violence survivor, I had created this program to help other people get access to services. And so out of that came the possibility of engaging in a community-based participatory research project. I had never done that, but with people from OHSU and Portland State, they were like the principal investigators, and they brought community people in. And so we were part of being able to lower the depression scores of survivors of domestic violence. And that was like, whoa, we did that because we created, opportunities and trainings, and I did events, and it was like, I love creativity. So I could do this, and it's like research. Oh,
And
yeah.
you're changing people's lives.
Changing people's lives. It totally opened me up. And so this is why I feel like it's so important to give people access to something, because you never know whether it's going to lead. Because that experience years ago, and I was in that research project for 7 years, that kind of opened up my heart and my mind to move again closer to I Am M.O.R.E. So everything to me is connected, and this is how I work with the young people. I help them understand how to connect things that they might feel are, oh, that happened there, that happened there. No, they're all connected to who we're becoming.
Absolutely. Well, they're all experiences that happened to you, that you were a part of, and so you have to, there's a line that runs right through our bodies, through our experiences. And so you have to, I think it's great that you're pointing that out for younger people. So I know that you are all over this internet, but you need to tell all the people, you need to tell all of our listeners where they can find out more information about the good work that you're doing. Where can they find it?
Well, I have a personal website that is Renee Mitchell Speaks at ReneeMitchellSpeaks.com. My email is the same, Renee Mitchell Speaks at yahoo.com. And then the programming that we've been talking about is IamMoreResilient.com. And because I wanted to figure out a way in the age of social distancing to also engage in something, we started the Spreading the Black Joy Virus campaign. This came out of, I was feeling when the pandemic first hit, I was anxious, not sleeping, not eating, just doing, just not really processing it very well, right? And so then I had to step back and say, well, what do I want? Because we're fighting against all this stuff, including a virus, and including, doing these marches and social justice, and all of that was necessary. But what do I really want? Like, I want joy. I want to be able to, laugh. I wanted to be able to enjoy my life. And so unless I create it for other people, then it's not an authentic kind of creation of joy. So I work with some of these young people to create this intergenerational project that invests joy into the Black community, because with all of the protests and the death, and it just felt like there was this heaviness, and I wanted to be able to offer something different. And so it started out with this little thing, and then it just like, woo, because as more
spread
involved, yes, it's the kind of projects that we were doing really increased. And so, so they can find out more information about that at www.spreadingblackjoy.com. Just really simple. See all of the projects listed, and click it and find out more.
So. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Renee. This has been really wonderful to talk about the work that you're doing, and I wish you all the luck with your dissertation and beyond.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. This has been a great conversation, and I hope people get in touch and learn more.
Thanks so much.